Hi, it's Sam here from Shelf Control. I'm here to talk to you about the latest updates to the game, my journey as of far, and the changes I made to make the game better and more fun for everyone. So, for those who are new here, Shelf Control is a resource management, tableau building, engine building sort of game. It's about libraries, books, and bookworms, and it's for players 12 and above. 2 to 4 players, and plays about 60 to 120 minutes, depending on how fast you can play. So in terms of updates to the game, I made a lot of updates. So a little bit of updates to the journey as so far. I have play tested my prototype with a publisher, and they're interested in the game and they suggested a bunch of changes. So because they suggested a bunch of changes, I updated the game, and because they're willing to invest, I decided to put in a little bit more effort into making the game prettier and more understandable at a glance. So I added icons. So these are some of the cards as of far. So you might not be able to see, but this is what some of the icons are. And because it's icon based, I found that everyone plays the game a lot better now. It's understandable at a glance. It's understandable from far away. It's a little bit of a learning curve because when you don't know what the icons mean at first glance, you do get a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit confused, but after a while, it does get quite manageable. So the icons are a great addition to the game, and I found it really fun to actually create the icons and implement them. It was a bit of work because it was just I need this icon for this particular aspect of the game, but then I need the same icon for another aspect, and then I had to separate them and make them more visually distinct so it doesn't get confusing. It was a whole ordeal, and it was really fun. A little bit frustrating, but still really fun. So in terms of other updates, I made changes to the colors. The previous iterations were quite colorful, quite groovy, I suppose. And I had some comments that the colors were a bit childish, and it made it look like more of a children's game. So I updated the icons so it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit more book themed. So these are some of the colors. And because I made it more book themed, people have complained that it does make it a little bit more colorblind unfriendly. So I added more icons to make them even more colorblind friendly, and it's been really interesting. So another update is reducing downtime. The feedback I've gotten was to reduce downtime in the game, and I got inspiration from the publisher, and the publisher got inspiration from Terraforming Mars and Everdell, where he suggested an action selection turn-based structure. So because it's now action selection and now it's turn-based, it's a lot friendlier. It's a lot less downtime, and because there's a lot less downtime, the game plays a lot quicker. It also means the end condition and the win condition had to change, so it's no longer a race to a particular amount of victory points. It's now a 4-round structure, so you can go for as long as you want in those 4 rounds, but at the end of 4 rounds the game ends and whoever gets the most points wins. So I also changed the scoring mechanic of the game quite a lot. So now it's like this. This is like an example of what the scoring looks like. I'm not sure if you can see. And because you score books every round, and then at the end of round 4, you also score books, bookworms, and banned books, and as well as sets of resource. And because you do that, you can now see who's kind of winning in the first few rounds, and then it's a surprise sometimes of who actually wins the game, because you can be in a really good position in the first 3 rounds, but at the end of the game, the bookworms might actually protest and then help you win the game overall. So there was also another feedback where I had to reduce the randomness of the bookworms. So because every bookworm is unique, it means that it really depends on your configuration at the end of the game, whether you will get the bookworm or not. So some comments was the bookworms are too easy, some comments were the bookworms are too hard. So it's a bit of balancing between either of the bookworms. And the number one comment was the randomness is probably a bit bad for strategy. So when you draw bookworms, you have no control over what you draw. But there's a little bit of reduced randomness now where one bookworm is revealed. And because one bookworm is revealed, you can choose either to blindly choose or to choose the revealed bookworm. So because of that, there's reduced randomness. There's also, in terms of as a designer, controlling book count is very important for the game because people can get inflated scores. So I don't want to do that. So I reduced I made sure the books themselves had reduced book counts. There's not too many resources about. People can't hoard resources as much. And even if they do, the resources get put back into the bank quite quickly. So controlling book count is very important for the game. And so the maximum a genre can have is 12 books. And I think that makes the game quite fun, makes the game quite achievable. And yeah. And in terms of catch-up mechanics, so there's a couple of catch-up mechanics now. The number one catch-up mechanic is when you pass, you now gain a resource. And if you gain a resource, you can accumulate more things to do in the next round. And you can opt back in if you wish, but it's bad economics. But you have the option of doing that. And because people can get resources, it's now a bit more engaging to actually pass, because you have to keep track of what you want, keep track of what the other players want. It is a little bit of a multiplayer solitaire game, but there's still enough interaction that there's still engagement with other players, because depending on what other players have, you do get resources for them, and you have to keep track of, or you don't have to keep track, you can see at a glance what other players have. And because you can see at a glance, you can always be a bit zoned out, but it's good to be engaged. There might need to be a little bit of factor where you do gain influence, but I do think that's not a base game design. It's more of an expansion design. And I would really like the base game to be more simple. Another thing is resources now. So in the previous update or the previous progress video, I think I talked about resources. I'm not sure if I did, but there are resources now. And what is one component is one change I definitely made was removing cash altogether as a base thing. So now all the books need resources, or the books generate resources, and there's no cash in the game at all. It's just resources. I do think it's more elegant of a game now. Based on feedback, it is a lot more elegant, and it's really fun seeing people count their resources, especially when the resources themselves, this is the prototype, so we're using beads. It's really fun to see people gather resources, and it looks really aesthetically pleasing. Also adding a trade option for resources. So before, it was a bit of working out to do, because I was just this resource should go into this resource, so it's a circular economy. I had feedback that was too confusing or too unfair or too wasteful. So now it's just 2 for any resource, 2 of the same resource for 1 of any resource. So that makes it quite simple, and it's quite easy to do the maths. In terms of things that still need tinkering, it's just about the aesthetic of the game as of far. The color, the icons might need a little bit of tweaking, so it's more intuitive. I do think the bookworms and the books are quite good in terms of resembling each other now, because they all follow this structure, and it's really easy to see at a glance what you need for each bookworm, because the bookshelf resembles that. So it's really cool to have that comment, and it was really good for me to implement that comment. So yeah. The trading on the books still needs a little bit of adjustment because people get too much resources. Even though the resources do run out quite quickly, I don't want the game to have that many components. Like, I don't want there to be too many tokens of a particular resource. So I do probably need to reduce the resource, the gains of resource. But that's kind of a later problem. It's really I need to play test on whether that will feel good, because I do like the aspect where people can get a lot of resources and feel good about it. So that's a designer thing, where I want people to have fun, but I do want the game to feel like marketable, I guess. I also got the comment that scoring on resources is a lot of brain work for not that many points. So there was comments that resources should equate to points at the end of the game, but because you have to calculate manually how many resources you have at the end of the game, it's a lot of work, but a lot of work for not that many points. So I don't have an answer for solving that, but it is a problem to be solved. Maybe like the answer is always an app or like a calculator of some kind. But I don't like that answer, and I want to see if I can implement any other strategies. And then the last, but not least, is always making sure the rulebook is clear and understandable for everyone who plays the game, even if I'm not there, even if someone who isn't there, so isn't there to explain the game, they can play it anyways. So I do think my rulebook is quite clear as of right now. There needs to be some tweaks, of course, but this is what the rulebook kind of look like. I'm not really too familiar with rules myself because I never read the rules. I always rely on people to play the game, who played the game before, to explain the rules. So I do think rule books, like, design is really hard, but yeah, I also think my current rulebook is pretty clean. It just needs a little bit of cleaning up. Yeah. So that's the progress of the game as of far. I'll upload another video talking about the rules of the game and kind of explaining it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the update so far. So in terms of progress or journey or like what the game is as of right now, I ideally would like to sign a contract with a publisher and publish it sometime this year, next year, because the game itself seems really clean as it is. There is a little bit of feedback where there isn't too many contrasting strategies in the game, but I do think those kind of games are more heavy, where, like, for example, Root or like Twilight Imperium. I'm sure there's a lot of different strategies in the game that you can do to win the game, whereas this game is a little bit more linear. It's a little bit like straightforward to play the game, and because it's straightforward, there's not that many like different strategies you can have. But I do think there's still a little bit, and I do think there's a lot of agency. I do think there's a little bit more interactivity in the game than it was previously. So yeah, I don't really know where to go with this. I do want to get it published. I ideally don't want to get it self-published. I do want to do a Kickstarter with a publisher. So I'm creating marketing. I'm gaining awareness for the game for it. Going to a little playtest and fine-tuning the game that way. Like, the current version has been playtested about 10 times. So that's not a huge amount, but it is enough to say people are really enjoying the game, and it is a lot of fun. And even though I've been playing it for a lot of times, it's still really interesting to actually play the game, because you kind of can turn off your brain a little bit, but not too much that you can um still win the game. So you do need a little bit of brain power to win the game. Yeah, I think that's pretty much my comments. um I will put, like I said, like I mentioned before, I will put the rules up, a video rule book. I'll put the rules up, like a video version of how to play the game up soon. I'll put the rule book up for people to comment and people to make changes to. And I would even put an online prototype up, so you can play the game yourself with some friends. And yeah, love suggestions, love some comments, love some like and subscribe. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye.